I'm going to ask it to record just so we can figure out where to sit.
Look at us.
Yes.
It's happening. I say we just like
Get
plow
going?
through, much like the men in our books. We just plow
We just
through.
start plowing, yes.
Exactly.
Yes, get to the action. Hi, welcome to Yes Please with Monsters. I'm Jess.
And I'm Meg.
And I'm Alex, and on this show, three Midwestern librarians are going to explore the magical literary world of monster romances. But on this first episode, we are going to let you know a little bit about ourselves and our history within this genre and just our history with books in general.
In this first episode, we're going to keep it fairly mild, but in future episodes, this is definitely an 18-plus podcast. We're going to just be kind of covering some of the basics today and telling you a little bit about what you're in for. But in future episodes, we're definitely going to be recapping some steamier scenes, and we're going to be covering material that was intended for an 18-plus audience. So please keep that in mind, listeners. If you're under 18, you should really switch to something else.
Yeah, why are you listening to this? Go. It's got an E marked on it.
Go watch Gargoyles. Go.
Well,
Beauty and the Beast. Shrek.
We have.
We're gonna ruin all of those things.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
You can watch the Spiderwick Chronicles.
Ooh. Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah. I could probably ruin anything by making it sexual, so I should just stop talking until the under 18s go away.
Yep. So for this episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about ourselves and why we are doing this podcast. I don't know who would like to begin.
You go.
You go.
Okay, my name is Meg, and I am excited about being here because Alex pitched for her library book club the first Ice Planet Barbarians book, and that is a book that I've been hearing about for years, and I kept being like, I have to check that out, and I didn't ever really have a good excuse. So then for this book club, I read it, and I was really delighted by how sincere it was and how like it didn't make fun of its readership in any way and was like excited about the world building that it was setting up. And then we realized that there were like 30 of these books, and Jess had the idea that we should read some of them for a podcast. Like having a podcast would be a good way to have a structure for reading all of these, and I thought that sounded great.
None of us so far have read all of the Ice Planet Barbarians series, correct?
No, I think you're the most read of them, and you've done 2.
I've done 2, yes.
Okay. So the first 2 books, the first like 3 books we're gonna cover are gonna be Ice Planet Barbarians.
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. And the third one will get to be where you get to see all 3 of us reacting to having read it for the very first time. And it's gonna be a fun journey for all of us.
Yeah, so that being said, we're not exclusively going to be covering the Ice Planet series. We do plan on covering some other material as well. Pretty much if it's monstrous and smutty, we're very, very into it, but varying levels of monsters as well as varying levels of smut can be expected. I think the Ice Planet goes at a, would you say medium level for both of those things? It depends on what you're currently reading.
Yeah, I think that would totally depend on your personal threshold. I would say for me, it's pretty medium. Also, like in terms of the true definition of like a monster romance, like I don't want to get too much into talking about it before we're at that episode, but like the guys are it's still pretty much genetically like a human man, just bigger and more vibratey.
They're features that you'll recognize.
It's very like Star Trek, like the Star Trek aliens before they really had the special effects that we have today and like CGI. It would often just be kind of a community theater level of like body paint, a weird headdress, maybe someone has a false nose on, but like mostly humanoid, and that's kind of where I feel like the Ice Planet Barbarian series lands.
And so on that note, one thing that I would like to cover in this episode is for each of us, what is your personal history with paranormal romance generally, or creature crushes more specifically, because I certainly have a few in mind, and I think you two might as well. And so I'm going to pass it to you two to start, and then I will share my thoughts.
Okay, well, I will get started. I'm Alex. Much like my two lovely co-hosts, we are all Midwestern librarians. So that's really fun. Obviously, we all love reading. My history with paranormal romance, I mean, I feel like pretty much probably all of us, I would be safe to assume, like, our first experience with like a monster romance would be like Beauty and the Beast, right?
For sure.
And I will say, the drawing of the guy after he's not the Beast, he's just like some dude, and I feel like he's got way more character and stuff when he's the actual Beast, and frankly the story probably would have just been better if he stayed that way, but
Prince Adam just doesn't do it for you.
I always forget that that's his name.
It is his name, yes.
But other than that, I would say kind of I've always loved like any kind of romance. It's basically my favorite genre. And when I was in high school, I obviously did the Twilight books. And then I also, Meg Cabot did this series about mediators and the main character in it and her relationship with a ghost. But I wouldn't say that I've really done any other like non-humanoid romances until I did Ice Planet Barbarians. So I'm coming at this from the perspective of like a very avid romance reader who has done like some Holly Black. The guys usually always have some kind of non-humanoid features, but like for the most part they're human. Creature crush, probably like many other women of my age, Mr. Tumnus in the Chronicles of Narnia movie, which is like barely a creature crush because it's James McAvoy, but it's
But
fine.
he has weird ears. He has horns.
And he's got a goat butt.
A rump situation.
And then, but beyond that, you know, I love like the show Vampire Diaries and stuff like that, but for the most part, my like non-human romances are all still pretty much human, with the except, you know, save like maybe, oh, they've got horns or oh, they've got a tail. But one of my favorite things in the world to do is go to my husband and rant no context about the romance books I'm reading, and the more out there the better. So I've definitely like expanded my repertoire, and I'm very excited for the things I'm going to be able to say to my husband doing this podcast. Yeah, he's gonna hate me and hate you for it, but I'm gonna love you for it, and that's what really matters.
It's important to have a partner who's open to listening. It's important to have someone who will hear you out on those sorts of things.
This is Jessica's relationship corner.
Yes, indeed.
Meg, do you want to go next?
Sure. Probably from the time that I was a really, really young kid, I always related to characters that were like weird in some way, or there was an element of them that you had to be like, oh, you have to get past this. Like, I was telling Jess this earlier, but the first fictional character where I ever was like, I like so identify this is like a part of my personal brand, was when I was a toddler. I was obsessed with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Like, I had a bunch of like merch, and like my baby stocking as a child was like a Rudolph stocking, and I really related to that. Like he's an outsider, there's a thing that's like identifiably visibly weird about him, and everyone has to learn to accept it. And I just kind of went through life like relating really hard to characters like that. Another character that I really, really like projected a lot onto and related to was Eustace from the Chronicles of Narnia. And there is a moment, like the most vivid moment in the series, I think, where he gets transformed into a dragon. And that's kind of the part of the book series where everyone stops hating him because he's really bratty. He's been transported into this, you know, fantasy world from being a very sheltered, very wealthy child. And so he's complaining all the time. He's like reacting to all these things he's never seen. And all of these, you know, like soldiers on a ship are just like, what is wrong with you? Like, please grow up. And then when he's a dragon, he's like very vulnerable. He's so much like needing to rely on people who can talk and who can like bring him food, and he can't do anything for himself, and they all kind of learn to sympathize with him. And then when he becomes human again, like he's learned an appreciation for them, and they've learned like how to connect with him, and like moments like that I always just found so like not just relatable, but I was like, I need to believe that this is real. Like I need to believe that people will do this. And that manifested in other ways. Like I always really liked episodes of like sitcoms, or like, you know, there'd be like a background character in like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody that's like the nerdiest boy in their school has a crush on this really hot girl, and eventually they find out that she has like a nerdy interest, and then they can connect. And I like stuff like that. And I think the monster romance was just like another like evolution of like, oh, there's this guy with this thing that you have to kind of get past, but once you do, he's really lovely. Like you can have a romantic relationship with him. Like a very beautiful woman can learn to love him. And me as like a young closeted lesbian, I was just like, I need to believe that like a woman will do that for me. And so I think like my kind of early paranormal romance experience was I fell into Holly Black like pretty young. I read Spiderwick, and then went right into like Tithe. And her second YA book, Valiant, is about a girl who, first of all, the girl has a buzz cut. She's not like a traditional hot girl, but the guy that she falls in love with is a troll, and like
literal
a
troll,
big,
not like internet
monstrous-
monster.
Right, not just like a boy with horns, like a big hulking, like he has tusks, like scary troll, and they fall in love. And that's kind of a Beauty and the Beast story itself. And there were like I really liked the book Beastly by Alex Flynn, which had a horrible movie adaptation where the guy was not a beast, he was just like bald and had tattoos.
Oh yeah, that's the one where they like make him all like metally and stuff, right? The movie has Vanessa Hudgens in it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Alex Pettyfer.
Okay.
And then there were like Tanith Lee, Terry Windling, like authors that would do these like, you know, fairy stories where the fairies were like creepy or they were weird in some way, and I loved stuff like that.
So one of my favorite like fairy tale, folktale myths that I was really drawn to was the story of Tamlin. And Tamlin himself is not a monster. He's human, but he was abducted by the fairies, and at the kind of pivotal moment of this story, the human woman who loves him so much has to prove her love for him by holding on to him and not letting go as he goes through these numerous monstrous changes. And that motif was something that I was really drawn to. And there are a number of adaptations of this story. There was a children's book by Jane Yolen. There was a sort of 80s campus novel by Pamela Dean. And then my favorite was Fire and Hemlock by Diana Wynne Jones, is an adaptation of Tamlin that's a little more like contemporary, modern day, and not quite as magical as other like tellings of this story, but it was one that I really loved. And I just really enjoyed, again, that like theme of there are things you kind of have to get past, there are things you have to endure, but it's all going to be worth it. Other, I think, like smaller influences on just being drawn to this genre would be getting into fanfic really young meant that I just saw a lot of stuff that was like varying degrees of weird, sometimes in a like, I'm doing this intentionally to be funny, like, you know, someone wrote like a Shrek romancing Jesus Christ from the Bible fic, and
Oh
I was
my
like, well, obviously I'm
God.
gonna read that, that seems funny.
It's
What
a
is
little
that
bit of
named
everything.
and where can I find it?
We'll have to put a link in the show notes.
Okay.
And then there's stuff where like on the outside it seems like it's a joke, but it's actually very sincere. So like all of like Venom fandom is very, very sincere, and a lot of the fic is very like romantic and taking it extremely seriously, even though it's something that like from the outside seems kind of like a joke. And even like the Mike Costa Venom like comic series is very romantic and is like taking the relationship seriously as like, how are these two sentient beings going to like make it work? And then Doctor Who, I would say,
Yes.
is the other big thing. In particular, there was a lesbian couple, Madame Vastra and her wife
Yes.
Jenny Flint, were a human woman, like a Victorian, like scrappy sort of like gun-toting, like Sarah Waters type character, and then her wife is this like green-skinned reptile lady who
Totally
like
stunning.
cannibalizes
well.
people, but like
Mhm.
they're wives and they love one another, and
The
I loved
Victorian
them.
veil
Yes.
that she
Okay,
wears. Ooh.
I absolutely need to start watching
Mm.
Doctor Who. It feels like it's right up my alley, and I have never watched a single episode. The extent of Doctor Who I have is a clip where Matt Smith takes Van Gogh to see him, and he cries, and that's about it.
That's
Yes.
such a good episode.
That's a very good episode. And not to interrupt you, Megan, but I do want to touch very quickly because something that I think, Alex, you brought up was that we are definitely being very choosy in the types of monsters that we are willing to cover because we want this to be a nice experience for everyone. And one thing that came from Doctor Who that is worth mentioning is the Harkness test. Are you two familiar with the
Yes.
Harkness test?
You gave me a brief overview of it at work the other day, but I do not remember. So,
Okay.
for all intents and purposes, no.
Yes. So, and help me out if I forget any important parts here. But the basics of the Harkness test, they come from Jack Harkness of Doctor Who originally, and also Torchwood, who had a number of affairs with a number of different alien species. He's a very open-minded man and a true hero in this world. And so qualification number one is that the creature can communicate with you. It's at or above human intelligence. It is something that can communicate with you, and it's something that can consent to any actions that you may be taking. And this might be rolling number one and number two together. I feel like number one is communication, number two is consent,
That sounds right to me.
number three is that it's an adult of its species. So, for example, even though Baby Yoda in Mandalorian is several hundred years old, he is a child for his species. So
I thought he was
would
like
not
50.
be featured. Whatever.
Anyway, not the
However
point.
old he is, he's above 18, but not 18 human years.
Mhm.
He's still a child for his species. So would not be appropriate to include in these sorts of activities. I particularly enjoy that test because there is no mention of, connecting bits. That's beyond the point. It's just, can it talk to you? Are we having fun? Is it an adult? And I'm here for that. So
Yeah.
so that's the qualifications that I'm looking for, especially if we're accepting any like fan recommendations of things to cover. One reason that we may not cover some things that would be suggested would be if it doesn't fit those qualifications.
Yes, but as long as it passes the Harkness test, we will say yes, please.
Yes, please. If there's anything that you would like us to cover, if there's a particular monster romance that you've really enjoyed, definitely let us know. Send us an email, hit us up on Instagram or TikTok. That's the social media that we have so far. And we will update you as we add more ways for you to contact us. So definitely let us know what you would like to hear. I have not read any of the books you guys have talked about. I'm more open to it now. For me personally, I came at this from horror, and that was where my creature interest started. I've always been a big fan of any horror media truly, but especially something that features a creature. I love the special effects of it. I love the artistry that goes into that. Creature from the Black Lagoon was like one of the first movies I ever remember seeing, and I was just obsessed with it and so into it. So definitely, I think The Shape of Water was probably the first, kind of eye-opening to like, oh, people are into this. Like, this is something that is happening. This is something that's out there. I know that's not the first creature romance by any means, but it was kind of the first one that I was aware of. And being a creature from the lagoon lover specifically, that one definitely spoke to me. So yeah, coming from the horror side of things, there are questions that maybe you have when you're watching a movie. Like, there are questions about biology. There are questions about anatomy. I'm not saying that I want to see it all, but
I do.
But a special feature, right? You know?
You do get to see a lot in the most recent Nosferatu.
Yes. Oh my God. I love the most recent Nosferatu. That's another one, though, that for me almost feels like a little bit of a cheat on the creature because I'm so into Bill Skarsgård.
He's incredible.
He's so phenomenal. I love him so much. But yeah, so I came into this more from the creature side, and my more hardcore intro came from you, Alex, when it was pretty early when we started working together. You asked me if I was familiar with author Chuck Tingle and the Tinglers and the Tingleverse, and boy,
All
did
the
that
buckaroos.
boy did that open my eyes. I think you both mentioned like the sincerity at which certain authors can come at a very unserious topic and make it really feel like this is not something that's just a joke. This is not something that's just a bit. This is something that Chuck Tingle is doing for real. He's out there doing the good work, and
He's doing the Lord's work out there.
Truly, I completely unironically think that Chuck Tingle is one of the better writers of our time. I love his traditionally published media, and I've read not anywhere near all of the Tinglers, but I've read a few of them, and that's definitely something that I have in mind for a special episode at some point.
Oh, we're definitely doing some Tinglers.
We're fully going to cover them. I think we could each pick a few to talk about and get through. I think that would be super fun.
The works of Chuck Tingle are entirely uncharted
I'm sorry,
terrain
Dr. Chuck
Dr.
Tingle.
Tingle.
Dr. Chuck
yes.
Tingle, I have not read any of his
Oh,
works.
Megan.
So you guys are going to have to break me in on this podcast.
We'll try our very best to be
Prima
gentle with you.
nocta.
We'll try our best. I think you're going to love them, first of all. And they cover everything that you can think of and more that you never thought of. We've got dinosaurs. We've got cryptids. We've got
Sentient library cards.
Sentient concepts, even. Dr. Tingle is truly one of the best in the business, and I definitely plan on covering several of those. I think there could be an entire podcast just about those. We'll be doing other things as well. And then as far for me as like creature crushes go, like as a kid, gargoyles made me feel something for a number of the characters on that show. Like I do think that they were all drawn unnecessarily hot. For a kids show especially, I think that was a little uncalled for, but I'm really glad that it happened. And yeah, you mentioned Beauty and the Beast already. The part that I most resonated with that you said is like the personality of the beast that comes through that we just don't really have for Prince Adam. And I do wonder.
Yeah, he's just some average guy.
At what point, because in the movie, did they name him in the movie? He doesn't go to Belle and say.
He's just Beast.
Yeah.
Like that.
So what
I have
does
no idea where his name came from.
What does she call him? Would be my question.
Well, up until the very end of the movie, she keeps referring to him as Beast. So that's probably what she still calls him afterwards, because
we can assume it continues.
We should assume it continues.
And I'm sure that exists somewhere in publishing, so maybe we should look for that.
It definitely does somewhere.
A sequel. Shrek is another obvious one. It fixes some of the problems of Beauty and the Beast, where we don't have the human transformation. We have a back to monster transformation. I don't know. What else? I feel like there's so many hot monsters that we could get into.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Ooh, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
That's not fair. That's
No.
literal hottest movie cast in the entire world.
The hottest movie cast in the entire world, and the guy who played the Mummy, whose name I'm blanking on. Do you
Arnold
happen to remember
Vosloo.
it? Okay. I wonder if he has hair now. I'm into it if he doesn't, and I'm into it if he does. Because I was into him with only half his skin on. So, hottest movie cast in the world, and open to getting with the monster, you know?
Yeah, they definitely, always get consent before you kiss somebody. But he does make out with Evie while she's sleeping, and he does start turning back into a mummy, which they never fully explain why that's the case, but it's fine. Also,
he was focusing his energy elsewhere.
Also him and is it Jordana Brewster in the second one.
I
who
don't
plays.
know who anyone is in anything.
I could be wrong. But they also like get all
Hot and bothered.
frisky. Well, there's definitely tension before he becomes Arnold Vosloo again.
Another bald man that I'm into who is not a monster is Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. The guy who tears people's hearts out.
Oh,
And
you wanted him to tear your
Mola
heart
Ram.
out.
Mola Ram could take my heart straight out of my chest, and I thank him for it. And that man never grew hair again. So goes the legend.
But this is not a podcast about appreciation of bald men.
It's not. So
Though
we can
maybe
move
it will
on.
become a spin-off if this conversation keeps coming up.
Well, in Beastly, Megan, that
Uh-huh.
is the direction that they went to make him a monster, and I don't think that's fair, personally.
Yeah,
He still looked very
gave him
normal.
they gave him tattoos and like metal all around him. And they're like, "Oh my god, no, now he's hit because he's got like scars
So
and
hideous.
metal and
Tattoos.
I'm pretty sure his eyebrows say embrace suck. I read that somewhere. So yeah, Beastly. He's
things-
horrible. He's grotesque.
Things that no woman would be into. So here's something, a question that I have for the two of you
Okay.
is, as we move forward on this podcast, what is considered monstrous enough? Because we want to keep it spooky and we want to keep it strange. And follow-up question, what is considered steamy enough material to cover? Because we want to keep it pretty steamy too.
Okay. So for me, monstrous enough would be like, because in Ice Planet Barbarians, the guys for the most part have human anatomy. They're just blue, big, horned, have tails and vibrate. Which some might say the vibration would be an improvement to men. But so my standard is probably not going to be as high as some other people's. I don't think, oh, they're just a guy, but they also have bat wings, like Bat Boys and Akatar and stuff like that. I don't think that that's enough. They have to not be able to pass as human. But then beyond that, for me, I'm fine. We can go like all the way to sentient, consenting squid. To again, like Ice Planet Barbarians, where they're dudes, but they're also not human. And then in terms of steamy enough, I mean, for me, I want to just jump right in and have them banging the entire book. But in the interest of actually having a plot that we can talk about, I think there has to be at minimum 3 to 4 explicit sexual encounters. I think for me that's the like minimum amount of steam for me to want to keep reading it.
Same question, Meg.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about what my standards were until you said that. I agree with being able to pass as human is kind of a cutoff for me. Like that makes it a little less interesting. Like stuff like, oh, this is like a vampire and he has weird eyes. I wouldn't really consider that like a monster in the way that we're trying to define monsters.
But are we saying that if it was like a Nosferatu situation, that would count?
I haven't thought on that.
if
Okay.
if he's weird looking.
Okay.
If
I-
it's a hear me out, then yes.
Yeah, I think also if we have some significantly monstrous behavior,
Mhm.
that could make up for some lack of interest in physicality.
Okay.
In terms of Steam, I mean, I would be willing to like read a YA book where it's like, this isn't like an erotica novel. This is just a romance.
Some yearning. Some
Yeah.
Okay,
old-fashioned
sure.
yearning.
Yeah, if I guess yes. If the characters in question are underage, then yeah, no, we can just have longing glances and hands brushing under tables and
Right.
stuff
And
like that.
maybe there's a kiss at the end.
Yeah,
Ooh.
exactly.
But yeah, Steam I guess isn't a deciding factor for me, as long as it's something that like makes me think about something in a new way.
Mhm.
So like, for example, my friend Kat was telling me about a fantasy novel where there's a romance in the background that's a troll woman and a human man, and it's not a romance book about those two characters at all, but I would be interested in reading something like that just to
Mhm.
like discuss that romance. So my standards are pretty open, but if that's like not something that we want to do for the podcast, if we feel like for our podcasting values we really want to stick to like erotica or like a certain hierarchy of spice, then I'm happy with that too.
Maybe we'll see what brings people through the door. Where are you willing to follow us? Let us know. Let us know on our social media.
All right, Jess, your time.
All right. My answer to that question is I would so fast turn this into just a horror podcast, but that's not what I'm going to do.
See, that's why I'm
Yeah.
here. I'm here to
Mhm.
keep the spice a part of it.
And I'm here to make sure that it's also unpleasant in some way.
And Megan is here because she gives excellent plot recaps.
Megan is the star of our show, truly, the backbone that holds all of this together.
You're so kind.
I do think that my horizons have been significantly broadened due to you two and working with the both of you. And I love that so much because there is nothing that I appreciate more than a genre mashup these days. And so having, you know, whenever you're interacting with fiction, there's certain like things that you expect, right? So like if you're watching a rom-com, you know that there's going to be like cute meeting and like, you know, the hand brushing. And then, you know, with the smutty books, there's going to be descriptions of like, and now.
I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
in books that might be being covered in the next episode, you just greet somebody by eating them out.
Yeah, you know, there's lots of throbbing, which we can appreciate. I think there's just so much longing, and there's still certain tropes that you would recognize from a traditional romance or a traditional horror, and I like seeing them twisted in a new way. So for me, the novelty is very exciting and very fun to explore, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Speaking of horror, you reminded me of a formative, I guess I wouldn't want to call it a creature crush, that's a little unfair, but the first time I read the book Carrie,
Ooh.
there is a moment where Carrie has been going on her rampage through the town. She's now killed countless people, and Sue like wrestles her to the ground and is like straddling her, and they mind meld.
Ooh.
And she's trying to calm her down, and there's a moment where Carrie's being like, you know, who is this, let me go, and Sue goes, it's me, it's Sue Snell. And I have never wanted two characters to kiss more than I wanted them to kiss in that moment. It is so romantic.
Yes,
And
yes.
in that whole book, like, Sue is trying to prevent Carrie from being bullied, and one of the ways that she does so is she offers her boyfriend
Ooh.
to Carrie. So there's
Mhm.
kind of a like love triangle, and then he dies, and it like doesn't really matter because it's about the relationship between these two girls, and it's so tragic that like that Sue can't fix her because she showed up too late,
Mhm.
but she was like the only one that cared about her. It's so romantic. I had
Yeah.
such big feelings about that book the first time I read it.
Actually, that reminds me of something we haven't said yet that I think is worth pointing out, along with not discriminating with what people look like and what limbs and appendages and whatnot they may have. We will also be covering things that span the gamut of gender and sexuality. We want all of it, every last bit.
I'm very specifically interested in finding more that do not feature human woman with large monstrous man. And not because I don't like that, because that is fun in its own way. And I think there are things to unpack about that. But that is a large majority of what I've seen just kind of like Googling around and looking for things to cover in this podcast is human woman with large alien man or multiple large monstrous men.
Or
know.
a minotaur.
Or a minotaur. That Milking Farm book
We are
is on
doing
my
that
list.
book.
We
We
are
are doing
definitely
that
doing that
book.
one.
But yeah, please give us your lady monster recs.
Yes, more
Please.
lady monsters, more, you know, gender fluid monsters, we're okay with anything.
Yes.
Truly.
And this would still fall within the realms of a heteronormative book, but I would love to do one where it's like hot, sexy human man, large, monstrous woman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like let's flip it on its head. I
Let's-
want to read that.
Let's explore that cavern. let's-
That's what he would say.
Let's dive deep. We'll really get into that in a future episode.
So for the first next 3 episodes, we're going to be covering the first 3 books of the Ice Planet Barbarian series, which I will say all 3 of us have already read the original book, and Jess has read the second, but by episode 4, which will be the 3rd book, you'll be getting our complete unfiltered reactions to the book with fresh eyes. So that's going to be really exciting. Also, just in general, like these are all going to be like sentient beings that are like on board with what's happening. So you know, this is not a bestiality podcast, okay?
No.
We are not saying to go out and, I don't even want to say it because it's gross.
Yeah, don't send us that. We don't want that.
We don't want that. We don't want that. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing and honestly, like Meg said, the idea for this podcast came because we read the Ice Planet Barbarian books for my romance book club that I host at Undisclosed Library System in the Midwest. And I think an obsession was born between us. We really like bonded. It was a formative experience, and now we're going on this beautiful literary journey together and bringing you along with us.
Much like the heroines of this book series, we formed rather a sisterhood on the planet of Not Hoth because
Yes.
we had to endure the conditions together and found that we loved them.
You can find us in most places that you would look for podcasts by searching the name Yes Please with Monsters. Our handle, anywhere that it asks for that, is at YPWM Podcast. Right now we're on Instagram and TikTok, and we may add more as is called for. So let us know where else you would like to see us, or by the time I post this, maybe we'll be in a few other places.
Yes, and also if you want to reach out to us by email, you can do that at yespleasewithmonsters, all one word, at gmail.com.
Yes, send us an email. Let us know what you think. Maybe we'll make a website at some point.
Ooh, new skill to learn.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're all pretty brand new to this, so we are learning as we go along. We are building the ship as we sail it, if you will. And we don't have a lot of sailors to help us out, so yeah, that's where you can find us. And if you can hear this now, you did it.
Good job.
Great job.
Tell your friends about us, please.
Tell
If
your
you-
freaky friends. If you
Yeah.
have questions,
If you have recommendations,
If you wrote something yourself.
yes, please send it to us. And as we always say, keep it strange.
keep it steamy.
And keep saying, yes, please.
Yes, please.